our native land, our native land, our native, our native, our native land. Hiya, hiya, our native land.
Hey everybody, Tchadas Leo here, host of Our Native Land. Welcome back to another episode. I'm so happy to be here. Before we get started, I would just like to do a territory acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory Czech Studio stands upon, and to all the tribes that are part of the Coast Salish, Nunchanoth, and Kwakwaka'wakw on Vancouver Island. I thank these nations and traditional land keepers for allowing us to live, work, and play on their lands. And I thank you, the listener and viewer, for joining us once again. I'm very excited to talk about the subject matter at hand and the person who I have with me on the show. He is Chief Harlan Schilling. He is the Deputy Chief from the Lieutenant Council. That's from the Kaska Nation. It's very far up in northern BC. We're going to talk a bit more about his location and whatnot. He's been the chief there for almost a year. Thank you so much to Harlan for coming on the show. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Harlan, let's just get a concept of where you are in northern BC. You're just telling me you're close to Watson Lake. Yukon is the closest, reference to where your tribe is. So, tell me about your tribe and the size and your role that you play there.
So, Lieutenant Council is part of Liard First Nation, which is the central community and central nation of the Kaska. And the Kaska comprise of Ross River Dene Council, Dease River First Nation, Quadacha Nation, and Delu. So, we're four First Nations, five communities. And like you'd mentioned, I'm in the farthest northern British Columbia, neighboring right with the Yukon. So a lot of our amenities are in Watson Lake, Yukon, which we have an amazing relationship with. That the town of Watson Lake's always there for Lower Post, and now with things going on, we're hoping to repay that kind love that they've shown our community, and then we could be there for the town of Watson Lake.
Absolutely. And you were just telling me before we went on the air here that your introduction to politics has kind of been a surprise to you. So you've been in the military for quite a few years. Is that correct?
Yeah, I left the Canadian Forces. Wonderful group, wonderful friends and family in 2016, and I moved back home. And somehow shortly after my return home, I got more involved with my community, and I saw an opportunity to better serve my people and my nation. So it's been a fun and exciting time. My community's always been a close place to my heart, and it's full of beautiful people. So it's not me that's done a whole lot of change. It's really been them, and it's been them teaching me. So it's been a great experience.
That's amazing. Now, I want to ask so much about living up in the north and dealing with the temperatures in the winter. Like I love watching like anything like I don't know if you've seen the show like Life Below Zero or Life Below Zero. Like that's just I love watching that. I don't want to live that far up north, but I love watching it. So I want to get to that later. But the reason why I reached out to you is I saw a picture online through an Indigenous News website, and there's this picture of you, and you're holding a piece of a former residential school that was in the area where a lot of your tribes are located. I believe it's called the Lower Post Residential School, and it was recently torn down or burned down in a ceremonial manner recently around Canada Day. I don't want to give too much away. I want you to kind of explain to me the process up until this point of this happening, and tell me a little bit about that day.
So the Lower Post Residential School operated, I believe, from 1949 to 1975, and it shut down on June 30th, 1975. So our community has had that building my entire life. The people of Lower Post are the strongest willed people I think I'll ever meet in my life, for having such a horrible piece of history, constantly reminding them every day of what the government of Canada and what history has done to our people. So we got to tear that building down on the anniversary, or not anniversary, but on the day that it shut down. And it was more in direction of the people in Lower Post and the Kaska. But that building did not just affect our community. It was the largest residential school, I believe, in the Northwest. So there are 16 First Nations in the Yukon that school affected. So it's absolutely phenomenal, the amount of people and students Lower Post is a relatively small community. We have about 160 to upwards of 200 people that live in on reserve at the time. And at one point, there were 603 students at that school.
Wow.
So that was a large population of Yukon First Nations that were affected. So us being able to bring that building down was, we made a little bit of history there.
Yeah.
So and that was with the support of all the First Nations in northern BC and the Yukon. It was a moment where Lower Post and the Kaska got to welcome in our brothers and sisters from across the north, and we all had one common goal. And those survivors that went there, they did it. They didn't let a system that was designed to break them break them. So it was a very touching moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find that all those nations and people in the surrounding Yukon and northern BC area, there was a sort of unanimous decision that this was the right thing to do?
I believe so. The portion of that residential school that was left standing that our people here in Lower Post Dalu had to work out of, that a lot of different types of abuse happened in that part of the building, right? So there was no question in do we refurbish it and make it into a usable space. It was just there was a basement in there that was absolutely very eerie and scary. Even as myself as a grown man to go into, you felt just a bad air,
Yeah.
a bad you didn't want to be there.
Hmm.
So we did have those talks. Infrastructure is very hard and hard thing to come by in the north. So it was a very long and hard decision.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, our job as leaders is to do what the people want, and the people wanted that building gone. Um, it was very emotional at the beginning of that day when the day we tore it down, did the ceremonial shutdown, tear down. Um, but it was so touching. It was, it felt like finally the government of Canada, with their support, um, something good happened. But that day was about residential school survivors, not just here in Lower Post, not just in the Yukon, and not just northern BC. But that little piece of history that we got to make that for all First Nations across Canada. It was their win.
I can feel the emotion just by looking at the pictures of that day. Like, so let's say you got a piece of the residential school that was teared down. You got this big fire in front of you. If I was there with you and I'm standing beside you, what are you feeling?
I I've I'm still speechless. Um, I didn't attend. I'm 34 years old. I didn't attend residential school. My mother attended residential school, and she did a phenomenal job raising us five boys without letting that trauma continue on. Right? She did. She stopped it. But she did educate us on the things that happened along with the other elders in the community. I just felt profound happiness that my elders, my community members, they continued to fight and advocate to have that building gone, and they continued to teach us younger generations what exactly happened there. And as I keep saying, is they didn't let that system beat them. I get goosebumps just thinking about it, even knowing that my ancestors they won when that system was designed to eradicate who we are as a people. They took us off the land. They took away our language. Um, so and talking with government, I like to emphasize, and I can't emphasize this enough, that this is just the beginning,
Hmm.
right? For how many years residential schools were run and operated by the government of Canada, I'd like to see the government of Canada put infrastructure and put dollars, just like they did into the residential schools, into revitalizing our language, revitalizing our culture. Like I said, we live so far north. Culture is one of the strongest things that we have. Our land based here in the north is phenomenal, and that's one thing we want to protect. It's what's ours. The Kaska is unceded territory. We never signed an agreement with Canada to give up our land.
Hmm.
So we'd like to push and fight that the Kaska, along with our neighboring First Nations, we are strong enough now. It's been years that we beat their residential school system. Our elders are teaching us our traditional ways. Younger people, like many other people in my community, they've left our community. They've gone and gotten educated,
Hmm.
right? So it's not us. It's not. We're not the same people we were 75 years ago.
Absolutely.
We we're strong, we're proud, and we can govern ourselves. We don't, we've seen that they tried to use their system and their system didn't work. So I'm going to be, along with the rest of my people, my neighboring First Nations, advocating and not, I don't like to use the word fighting against government, but working with government to see how we can move and progress together. We
Yeah,
can't change the past, but you know, we could definitely shape the winds of our future and which way, in which direction we go.
absolutely. Now, speaking of governing yourselves and making that change and moving forward, the government, the building's down. So what comes next in that area? Is there any immediate plans or discussion of what that place is going to look like now?
So Premier John Horgan, he came to our community in October of 2019. He actually brought his wife down. He got to talk with some of the survivors of the school down in Lower Post. And that man truly got to see the effects of what that building is on a community.
Hmm.
So, and he was a big advocator. Taylor Bacharach, our MP for the North here, he was another person that came. So we've got some really good friends with government that actually truly, as human beings, understand what that building meant and what it symbolized. So we worked with the government of Canada, with the province of BC, and we've secured the funding, and we are actually starting, hopefully in the next few weeks, building the new multi-purpose center in Lower Post.
Amazing.
So, and that's going to be a big difference for our community.
Yeah, what's going to be inside it? Like, what's the plans? Like, what's going to be the functionality of the multi-purpose? I know it's multi-purpose, so it could be anything. But do you have what's your vision? What's your hope?
Just it's a happy place. Like I said, the air. You and I talked before with that old building now. Elders
Yeah,
of air. The air is even better in our community now.
yeah, that's so cool.
So having that new building, it's going to be a full size gymnasium. There's going to be an industrial kitchen, our post office, a small cafeteria. There'll be some office space for our governance to govern ourselves and administer the community programs. It's just going to be an absolute new beginning. Lower Post, I think one of the community members, Lower Post can be a happy place again.
Hmm.
Just because with that old building there, we've had First Nation members that have lived 15 minutes from the community of Lower Post,
Yeah.
but have not been here in 20 years because they didn't want to see that building again. So,
Wow.
and they came down here for that ceremony on the 30th, and I got to talk to a couple of them, it almost made me tear up that they said it's finally gone and they could finally come home.
Yeah. It's so interesting to see how a building can have such an effect on a human being because when there's such abuse and poor poor um, governance or attempted governance of dealing with indigenous people, the pain I can't relate, but I can only imagine how they felt when they saw that building go down, and that's again why I reached out to you because I was just looking at these pictures and I wasn't there, but I felt there, and it just seemed like such a powerful environment for everybody there.
And it very much was, with the atrocities and the findings that are coming and happening across Canada.
Mhm.
Um, you know,
Are
my
you
if
are you
I,
guys looking on the ground right now?
we are,
Okay.
very sadly, I think that's going to be the new normal across reserves, and areas of old residential schools, and that's a sad truth. But you know, the tear down of that school, like I said, that wasn't just a win for us across the north. That was a win for all First Nations across North America.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a moment in history that I'll never forget, and I'll be forever grateful to be a part of it.
Hmm.
But like I said, the true winners, the true heroes, are every survivor of the residential schools. Those are who, you know, they've shaped our future, and they were the true heroes. So
Hmm.
um like I said, it's just I'm still speechless and don't even know have
Just
don't even know what words to use.
you're reeling in. I can tell. I can tell. I can feel it. Like I can feel like I can feel it, and I'm not even in the same room as you. Uh, those survivors that you're talking to, there's obviously it's not a surprise anymore that we're finding more and more unmarked graves. Is there any speculation with those survivors on a number of what they think is down there? That's a hard
So
question. I'm sorry.
no, it is, and the very sad truth, and I get kind of emotional even talking about it, is I believe there's one registered death at this residential school here in Lower Post. Just one registered. Um, so again, our history is not a beautiful one, as Canada, as a a country
Hmm.
when it came to First Nations. The residential school is right adjacent to our to the Liard River.
Hmm.
Right, so there's so many different horror stories. There was an incinerator that was built into with the school. So you could just imagine the atrocities and some of the horror stories that some of the survivors have said are like you know this you just it's very hard to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's and that's why I like our people up here. I I again I urge that this is just the beginning. The government of Canada, they need um they need to put money into infrastructure, just like this building here.
Hmm.
We need on the land healing base, specifically like just the Kaska Nation. We have a massive land base that is our traditional territory that's still untouched.
Hmm.
We are so far north. There are historical sites that we'd love to get back into. There's land, the Kaska Indigenous Protected Area, our conservation area, Kipka. It is another one, and I think that is when you start talking reconciliation. Somebody once said reconciliation, right? Right. We
Oh,
need to
nice.
actually see these things
Yes.
happen. So we're still fighting with like various levels of government to get our land back and get these things. But I think that's the biggest. I'm sorry, I guess you could say it from the government
Hmm.
is get us back our culture. You
Hmm.
see millions and millions of dollars going to different language programs in Canada,
Yeah.
but where's the money to bring back the Kaska language?
Hmm.
Where's the money to bring back our traditional values of living out on the land?
Hmm.
Like I said, I was gone for 10 years. 7 years were with the Canadian Forces, and it's come back, and it's almost like I've had to learn how to be First Nation all over again.
Hmm.
And it's a beautiful beautiful culture. I couldn't be even more proud to say that I'm a young Casca man.
Hmm.
And my daughter, she's 2 years old. I'm hoping one day like her and I can learn Casca together.
Yeah.
uh, that would just be phenomenal,
Hmm.
and not just her but every mother and father of a young child here in my community. I think that would just be absolutely breathtaking to bring our culture back.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you talking about the positivity and what you hope for you and your children and ultimately your grandchildren. So sounds like the reconciliation path is heading in the right direction.
I can only hope so. Again, you know what? It's you got to constantly stay on government.
Yeah.
And I think us as First Nations across Canada, um, right now, like I'm wearing a Three Nations shirt.
Yeah.
These are Casca, Teltan, Plinkett.
Yeah.
These are our neighboring First Nations that we work really well with together with.
Hmm.
You know, one could only hope that we have a T-shirt that says All Nations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is us as First Nations, Aboriginal, Indigenous people. We have to start coming together, right? Because we all have the same common values, same
Yeah.
common goals,
Of course.
and that's huge.
Yeah. I'm still just dwelling on that word, like reconciliation. Like how clever, Like it's just like you don't even have to explain it. It's just actually doing the action instead of talking about it. I think it's amazing.
I've got some amazing mentors up here. I've sometimes, as a young man, you feel down and out, and you feel like you're losing the battle. But you've got elders like Dave Porter, George Miller, Debbie Grote. Like there's these people in my community that have just always said, "Don't give up." And we're headed in the right direction. So
Hmm.
I think the government wheel does turn
Hmm.
slowly, but it does turn. So
Hmm.
um, again, it's just working together and keeping our voice active and knowing that our land is something that we cherish and we love and we have to get back onto.
Absolutely. Well, as promised, I don't want to take away from the importance of what had happened there and the destruction, ceremonial destruction of the residential school. That was really nice to talk about. But as promised at the beginning, I'm so curious about northern living. We got a little bit of time left to talk about that. So tell me about getting back to land and your traditions and your culture. Take me to like maybe like a week in the wintertime for you, like when it's time to go. Like, are you still practicing hunting? Are you still doing your best to live on the land? What are your people doing right now to survive in a non-traditional manner, non-traditional modern Canadian manner?
So and that's what's really hard is trying to balance, right? we live in a society where you have to work, you have to, you're right, you have bills to pay. And that's where trying to figure out what the best system is. Absolutely, wintertime, August, September. Our community actually starting today. My community is going out to a traditional culture camp.
Okay.
They're leaving today. They're there till the 19th, I believe. And we go out there. We do traditional fishing, traditional hunting. My cousin Kevin Pete just shot a moose yesterday
Oh,
morning.
wow.
So they're going to be out there, skinning it, hanging it, smoking it with the children, with the elders, making dry meat. So those are all the things that we try and do, and we try and instill back to our people. But again, it comes down to, right, like everybody's got lives, we got to work. So it's trying to find that balance of how we could make that work. And that's where I go back to the government saying we need a way to figure this out. Wintertime up here, this last winter we had about 2 weeks of minus 45.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty cold. But our people survive. I live right on the river,
Yeah.
and there's an elder here, Freddie McMillan, and I get to see. And it was minus 45. He's in his, I believe, maybe around his late 70s. That man still snowshoes across the river to go check his traps. So yeah, the knowledge and everything there it's truly amazing. The First Nations, I'm like, just like, or the rest across Canada, they all have those small things that they do that makes them unique and
Unique, yeah.
individual. But
Yeah.
yeah, but definitely learning a lot. So I'm very fortunate to still have a lot of these elders to pass on some of the knowledge to even to myself.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but it's you got to be able to come up here one time,
Yeah.
even for a winter, check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just got into hunting 3 years ago. So, like, for me, like, I'm always curious about stuff. That's why I watch a lot of those shows I mentioned earlier, because it's not that I want to live in negative 45, but I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to be able to, gain that knowledge too. I mean, my producer is his nickname is Casey Kyle for Kansas City. So I don't even think he understands what negative 20 is. I do, because my parents lived in Hazleton, just north of Smithers there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I've been up there, and they've had some, negative 35, negative 38, evenings there, and it's I understand that. It feels cold.
No, it's a way of living up here. It's absolutely it is beautiful right now. Again, I've got to work on something. The bugs, the mosquitoes right here are absolutely horrible. Like you
Oh
can't be.
no.
Oh man, it's bad. So again, it's all about being a young chief, trying to figure out, work with the elders, work with the people. Like they are bad. So yeah, it's different living, man. And again, I tell everybody, the Kaska, the First Nation here, we're a welcoming First Nation. So we're always telling, friends, brothers, cousins from wherever you are in
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
in North America, that you're always welcome here.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's able and willing and wanting to show you
Yeah.
what our beautiful land has to offer.
Absolutely. Well, I might take you up on that offer one day, but we're out of time, Harlan. I want to appreciate, thank you for your time and coming on our show and talking about, your people and living up north, and most importantly, bringing us to that moment with the ceremonial destruction and burning of the lower post residential school, which, as you said, the air is fresher, cleaner up there, and I couldn't be happier. So thank you so much for coming on our native land, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Must see. Thank you very much.